The Lakers have entered a new era. After the busiest offseason in the NBA, they have a completely rebuilt roster, giving us the first real glimpse of what a team built around Luka Doncic looks like. Critics are saying they overpaid in free agency. They're saying this roster doesn't have enough talent to do anything. So, are they right? Or did the front office have a clear vision all along? In today's video brought to you by Prize Picks, we're going to break down everything. Starting with what we already know to be true. Luka Doncic is a one-man half-court offense. That's not an exaggeration. Since his second year, the league's average half-court offense has scored a little less than 1 point per possession. Luka's teams, with him in the game, have crushed that mark. They're consistently 7, 8, 9 points above average, just churning out top 3 half-court offenses with ease, regardless of what the team around him looks like. That's because he's one of the most reliable and complete on-ball creators in NBA history. Every team he's played for has handed him the keys, trusted him to generate most of their offense, and he's delivered. It all starts behind the arc. He's constantly hunting for off-the-dribble threes, using his handle and change of pace to separate, with the size to shoot over any defender. He can get these shots off at will. Unless you're outright doubling, he's getting his threes up. This past season, he attempted about 8 pull-up threes a game, the most of any player by a pretty considerable margin. The level of difficulty on some of these can't be overstated. He'll take them over tight contests, while off balance, drifting in any direction. Yet, he still made about 36% of them. And I want you to really think about what that means for a second. A 35.8% three-pointer is worth 1.07 points per shot attempt. The league average half-court offense last season scored 0.98 points per possession. That's elite efficiency, 9 points above average, 2 points better than the number 1 half-court offense. And Luka generates 8 of these shots for himself per game. That's just on average. If you play him straight up and he gets hot, you'll see him attempt upwards of 15. Defenses have to be built around taking this shot away from him. It's too efficient and it's too consistent. That's part of the reason why you'll see constant ball pressure, guys overplaying the jumper, coaches sending double teams, aggressive pick and roll coverages. Then he'll use his handle, change of speed and size to get downhill. Part of what makes Luka is his ability to navigate space and get wherever he wants on the court. He's a walking paint touch. Then from there, he's an even more dangerous scorer. The level of craft, timing, soft touch. Inside the arc, he can paint the court with every type of bucket imaginable. Last year, about 78% of his two-pointers were unassisted. Almost all of his shots were self-created, yet he still made 57.5% of them, which comes out to 1.15 points per attempt, making it even more efficient offense than his world-class off-the-dribble three-ball. And that's without even getting into his ability to get to the line. Because after Luka gets 2 feet in the paint, it's not just that he can make any type of shot. If he catches a defender off balance, reaching, or being undisciplined in any way, he's going to draw a foul. He led the entire NBA with over 10 free throw attempts a game. And as you'd expect, that's more efficient than anything anyone is capable of producing from 2 or 3. All that's to say, Luka has the entire package as an on-ball scorer in the half court. He's a hyper-efficient pull-up three-point shooter who can get those shots off at will. Run him off the line and he'll get wherever he wants to go. Then he's a threat to not only make any type of shot, but get to the free throw line at a higher rate than any player in the league. In simpler terms, the threat of his individual scoring pressure dictates entire defensive strategies. He's constantly drawing to the ball, collapsing the paint, or forcing defenses to load up early in the gaps. Then the final, and maybe most important piece to the puzzle is that he can counter these looks as a passer. Between his size, vision, processing speed, and creativity, there are very few guys in NBA history better at getting the ball from point A to point B out of seemingly any situation. When paired with the scoring threat, this allows him to create high percentage offense for quite literally any type of off-ball player. Put him next to a slasher, he'll create space for them to drive into. Put him next to a corner specialist, he'll find ways to get them the ball for high quality threes. Put him next to a lob threat, he'll go up top and spoon feed them dunks. Put him next to a stretch big, he'll pull the defense to him and get them open above the break. Building around Luka means finding different types of guys to play off of his on-ball attack by extending advantages and finishing plays. And because he's able to create such high percentage shots for his teammates while producing great individual efficiency on a huge volume of self-generated looks, it's almost impossible for his teams to struggle shooting the ball. Just like with the half-court offense, his team's true shooting percentage is always great with him on the court. In some seasons, they've gotten up to over 3% above average, peaking last season at 3.5%. If Luka's in the game, regardless of who's by his side, the scoring efficiency is in good hands. But what about when he's not in the game? It's not exactly easy to replace that skill set, and I think they went into this summer with that in mind. The non-Luka minutes are built around Austin Reeves. He's shown on more than one occasion now to be capable of ramping up his usage and running the show with the bench. Most of his offense starts in high pick and roll setups, where similarly he'll use the threat of a pull-up jumper to get downhill. From the paint, he's got great touch. He's one of the better foul drawers in the league, and he's a very good passer who can counter different looks. So with the ball in his hands, he can generate great offense for the team. However, he can't quite dictate everything in the way Luka can. You want more weapons, ball handlers, and capable decision makers next to him. So the Lakers went out and got him. They brought in Colin Sexton on a 2-year deal. Sexton's a reliable three-point shooter and off-the-catch slasher who can legitimately initiate offense. So whether you want him spotting up, screening for the ball, or running a pick and roll, he'll pressure the defense and make plays. The same goes for Quentin Grimes, who they got on a 4-year deal. He isn't quite the ball handler or passer that Sexton is, but he too is a reliable shooter and off-the-catch slasher who can put pressure on the rim and make decisions. Not to mention Sandro Mamukelashvili, who they also got on a 4-year deal. While he doesn't provide the same sort of initiation from the perimeter, he's an incredibly skilled big who stretches the floor, can score inside, moves well without the ball, and can make a wide variety of passes. That's the whole idea. You supplement AR's on-ball game with skilled players at each position who can handle the ball, put pressure on the paint, score in different ways, and all make good decisions. Like we learned from Moneyball, you can't replace Luka Doncic, but maybe you can recreate him in the aggregate. Maybe you can generate just enough pressure to destroy other benches. And for those 12 to 15 minutes a game without Luka, the Lakers should have enough offensive talent to maintain an above-average true shooting percentage. For right now, all I'm focused on is their true shooting, and I'll explain why in a second. But before we get into that, I think it's important to mention that all of these new pieces should boost the scoring efficiency of Luka-led lineups as well. Not only will they create more space by demanding respect from defenses, they'll be able to play off of the advantages he creates and bring variety to the offense. Against better teams, you need a multifaceted approach that incorporates multiple points of attack, good ball movement, and different ways to finish plays. Guys like Sexton, Grimes, and Mamu have the ability to diversify the offense by unlocking different floor alignments, potential actions, and just have complementary skills that enhance the Luka-centric offense. While simultaneously, he's gift wrapping all of the easiest shots in basketball for them. And that part isn't exclusive to those three. Rookie Cameron Carr is going to find himself with plenty of opportunities to cut into open space, drive against a tilted defense, or knock down catch-and-shoot threes. As will their new defensive wings in Zaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle. There's also Walker Kessler, a pure play finisher who will find himself with plenty of opportunities to score at the rim. This team is going to be an elite half-court offense. They're going to have a high true shooting percentage. But the Lakers already knew that, because it isn't anything new. Like we've gone over, that's just what Luka-led teams do. It's the other areas of the game that needed a bit of sharpening. Before we talk about what that means, I want to take a second to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. If you know you can play responsibly and you have the means to do so, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy app, and they have a brand new offer for you. So if you're looking for a place to get in on some action, use code HMA and get started. There aren't any big games coming up in the W, but there are some big names on the Saturday slate, most notably A'ja Wilson, who's had some huge games coming out of the break. I think she'll stay hot, stuff the stat sheet, and deliver 41.5 PRAs. In a similar line of thinking, Breanna Stewart has been everywhere over the past few weeks. The Liberty have really been relying on her to do everything, and I like her at 34.5 PRAs against Phoenix. It's that easy. Find the stat you want, pick more or less, and you've got your lineup. Right now, they have a brand new offer. Play $5, and if your first lineup wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. So download the app, sign up with code HMA, and let me hear your picks down in the comments. At its core, basketball is an extremely simple game. You win by scoring more points than the other team. On offense, we can break that up into two categories: how many opportunities you have to score, and how well you convert on the opportunities you do have. Naturally, you can do the same on defense: how many opportunities your opponent has to score, and how well they convert. At the end of a game, these four factors are what determine your point differential. For now, I want to focus on the amount of opportunities. You might have heard this referred to as the possession battle. Teams want to find ways to create value on the margins, and they often do so by adding extra possessions. That's why coaches at all levels place an emphasis on effort plays like diving for a loose ball or chasing a long rebound. The possession battle comes down to two things: your turnover differential and your rebounding differential. If you outperform your opponent in turnovers and rebounds, you will end the game with more opportunities to score. If you do so comfortably, you can outscore your opponent even if you shoot considerably worse. The Lakers found themselves on the opposite side of that quite a bit last year. Outshooting opponents wasn't a problem. Over the course of the season, they had the second highest true shooting percentage in the league, only behind Denver, who had the #1 offense. You'd think it would make sense for LA to also rank as a top-tier offense, but they didn't, and that's because they didn't create as many opportunities to score as others. In fact, they were the second worst team in the league in that regard. So although they were incredible when it came to capitalizing on the opportunities they had to score, other teams were better at finding those opportunities by taking care of the ball and grabbing offensive boards. When it was all said and done, the Lakers finished with the 10th best offense in the NBA, scoring about 118 points every 100 possessions. If they could just find a way to add more opportunities, they would have been a top 5 offense, maybe even better. So that's exactly what they did. While Luka isn't quite a top-tier turnover suppressor in the way guys like Shea, Brunson, or Tyrese Maxey are, he's not by any means a turnover-prone lead ball handler. By nature of making riskier passes, he's gonna lose some possessions. It's a normal trade-off, and it's worth it. But because he takes on such a huge offensive responsibility that would typically be distributed to lesser decision makers, his teams generally take decent care of the ball. Along with the amount of competent ball handlers they can stack together in bench units, they have a chance to be a well above average turnover team. The other side of the coin is what the Lakers really focused on though: offensive rebounding. Not only does creating second chances help your offense by finding more opportunities to score, those opportunities often come against a scrambled defense. In many cases, it's an automatic advantage. This past season, the league's average offense after grabbing an offensive rebound scored about 1.13 points per play. That was more than 8 points better than the best half-court offense. I think that's a huge part of the reason why they paid Walker Kessler $130 million. Of course, he's a defensive player, but he's also quietly been an elite offensive rebounder from the moment he stepped in the league. Over the past 2 years, he's averaged 5.5 offensive rebounds every 75 possessions, the 10th most in the league. And while many view him as Luka's spread pick and roll partner, I could see them mixing up his usage. Of course, he'll be running lots of pick and roll. He's a big lob threat. But I can envision an offense structured around looking for mismatches, where they use their skilled guards or defensive wings to screen for the ball while Luka stresses defenses from the three-point line. This would be similar to what we saw from teams like the Hornets and the Celtics last year. They'd often have their best shooters screen to force switches or aggressive coverages, while they had a huge offensive rebounder fight for position down low. And what do you know? Both of those teams finished the season with a top 5 offense. Both of them finished in the top 5 in offensive rebounding. And they both finished in the top 5 in three-point rate. JJ Redick has expressed for years that he wants his offense to emphasize three-point rate. Luka's ability to create off-the-dribble threes for himself and spot-up threes for teammates makes this super easy, and it finally feels like they have the weapons to lean into it. From there, you can crash by committee. I mentioned Kessler. He's not even the team's best offensive rebounder. Kevon Looney's more of a specialist, but his specialty is finding extra chances. Over the past 2 years, he's averaged almost 6 offensive boards per 75, the 4th most in the league. He might only play 10 minutes a game. Their center rotation now consists of 2 top 10 offensive rebounders though. Last year, they didn't have a single player inside the top 30. That's without mentioning Mamu, who can get some offensive boards himself, or any one of their defensive wings, who can crash and make an impact, like Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, Matisse Thybulle, and if they go to him, Adu Thero. But those guys are meant to influence possessions in another way. LA's front office didn't stop their pursuit of the possession battle at offensive rebounding. Remember, there's another side of the ball. They wanted to go out and get defensive playmakers, guys who create chaos and force turnovers. Last year, this was a category that they were actually slightly above average in. Their opponents turned the ball over about 15 times every 100 possessions, good for 13th in the league, and they just got a whole lot better. Here's a look at the amount of plays each player made on the ball last season, on a per 36-minute basis. We've got deflections and we've got steals. Now let's highlight last year's Lakers. two guys stood alone as by far their worst defensive playmakers, DeAndre Ayton and Rui Hachimura, neither of which are returning. They also lost LeBron, Jackson Hayes, and Luke Kennard, who didn't move the needle there. The only great defensive playmaker they did lose was Marcus Smart. He forced a lot of turnovers. However, they kept most of the guys driving their above-average turnover generation, while adding some new pieces to the fold like Zaire Williams, Colin Sexton, and Mamu. That alone would be enough to get them into the top 10. But I need to expand the graph, because they also added Matisse Thybulle, who in his brief time over the past 2 seasons has been one of the most chaotic defensive playmakers in NBA history, picking up 8 deflections and 4 steals every 36 minutes. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like he'll sustain those numbers over a larger sample, but that's been his entire game for years. He checks in, wreaks havoc, makes outlandish defensive recoveries, and takes away possessions. The Lakers finally have an elite drop big in Walker Kessler. He's there to be in the right spot at the right time and use his size to turn away threats at the rim. He does that better than 99% of the league. I think they'll build a scheme around his presence, getting overly aggressive on the perimeter to chase ball handlers or shooters off the line and funnel them into him. A new spin on what the Jazz did with Rudy Gobert, or more recently the Spurs with Wembanyama. We established earlier that Luka's floor is a well above average half-court offense. You can stack his lineups with these defensive playmakers and over-rely on him to create shots. Not to mention all of the transition opportunities they'd get as a result. The best offense in basketball comes after forcing a live ball turnover. Last season, on average, teams scored 1.38 points per possession after a steal. That's the equivalent of a 46% three-pointer. So, with the right lineup combinations, the Lakers should be able to find a nice balance of offense and defense that actually benefits more from a few extra turnovers than it would another offensive threat. The best part about all of this is that they've got the depth to experiment. They could stack the floor with 5-out spacing, in a lineup where everybody can put the ball down and make decisions. They could go to a complete defensive slant, where they're relying on Luka to make difficult plays while shutting down their opponents. They could go to lineups that emphasize speed and athleticism, rebounding, turnover generation. They have options, and it all comes back to the 6 factors of basketball. Thanks to Data Baller, we can get a nice look at how the Lakers performed in each area last year. Despite winning 53 games, they only had a +2 net rating. Almost all of that positive point differential came from how well they shot the ball. That should carry on. But what if they're even better at suppressing turnovers and transform themselves into a top 10 offensive rebounding team? They'd be a top 2 offense in the league. Then what if a scheme built around Kessler's interior presence is enough to get to average opponent shooting, while transforming into a top 7 turnover generating team? They'd be an above average defense. Obviously, this relies on health and all of the pieces meshing together nicely, but the vision is more than clear. They know that with Luka on the court, the team is going to be great at scoring the basketball. From there, they supplemented the non-Luka offense, then added offensive rebounders and defensive playmakers to create value on the margins. There's a chance that at this time next year, we're looking back at a team that crushed in the 6 factors and won a ton of games. I'm pretty confident saying that this is a better regular season team than they were last year. Health permitted, I don't think a 55-win season is out of the realm of possibility, and they haven't even finished filling out their roster yet. Come playoff time though, I'm not too sure about the two-way lineup construction. We know an over-reliance on one defender, like Kessler, will collapse against a high-level offense. We also know that stacking the court with great defenders who are weak on offense would get exploited by a high-level defense. So against true championship contenders out west like the Spurs or the Thunder, I'm not sure how much of a fight they'd put up. However, against any other team in the West, and over the course of an 82-game season, this team is built to win games. They're deep, they're talented in a ton of areas, and they have one of the most reliable offensive players in NBA history. JJ Redick and the front office have a plan. Now we'll have to wait and see if they can execute.